everybody. Third part of The Lion and the Unicorn. Can you remember that Lenny, who was the evacuee, had met Mick in the secret garden and they'd been talking together about what bravery meant, and Lenny had got a little bit happier, hadn't he? He'd stopped wetting the bed and he'd started being able to get on with things, but he did still miss his mum. Anyway, Mum's weekly letters stopped coming. Every morning Lenny waited anxiously by the gates for the postman to arrive, but there was nothing for him. He told nobody how worried he was, but he started to have bad dreams about searching for Mum and running and running and running, and lions leaping out at him, pinning him down with their terrible teeth and claws. The bedwetting started again. In the end, everything was just too terrible to be borne. One night, Lenny waited till the girls were asleep. He had his suitcase ready packed. He put his precious badge in his pocket and crept downstairs to the back kitchen. It was difficult to unbolt the back door without making a noise, but he managed it standing on a chair. He was running away. He had to get back to London. There he is. He planned not to go by the main drive, which went round the front of the house, in case he was seen. Instead, he would cut through the gardens, into the orchard, through a hole in the hedge and across the field to the road. There was a bright moon. Lenny's sharp shadow tracked him nimbly along the silent paths. In the vegetable garden he scampered past roseberry beds and rows of staked-up runner beans where anyone or anything could be hiding. When he reached the orchard he broke into a run, weaving from one tree trunk to another, crouching low over his suitcase. When he reached the hedge, he stopped short. He thought he heard something moving stealthily and carefully through the grass on the other side. He listened. The whole night seemed to be breathing, purring, growling. He was sure something was coming through the hole in the hedge. Lenny did not stop to find out what it was. He dropped his suitcase and ran. Now, the dark, many-chimneyed shape of the house seemed to be flying swiftly against the moon, too far away to run to now, but he ran all the same wildly until he was heaving for breath. Now he was on the path by the summer house. He saw the door to the walled garden. He pushed it open, fell in slide, and slammed it shut behind him. Lenny was crying now, but he felt safe. The garden was completely quiet. The rose bush was frozen in the moonlight. Underneath, in its dense shadow, something glowed softly. It moved gently. Lenny wasn't frightened. He went towards it, and at that moment he saw the unicorn. It was alive, glimmering under the rosebush, sitting on its haunches with its one spiralling horn and its long white silky mane. It turned into a beautiful neck, and it looked down at him. Lenny knelt down. He laid his head between its hooves with his face in the grass. He was very tired. Almost at once he fell, as though from a great height, into a deep sleep. He woke with the sun hot on his neck. It was morning and the unicorn had gone. The statue was in its usual place, watching over the garden. Lenny got up and looked around. He knew that something had changed inside him. It seemed now that it was his own night fears which had been chasing him. He went out of the garden, closing the door softly behind him, and began to walk back to the house. The lion and the unicorn were back inside Lenny's head and on his badge, but one important thing was real, and that was what the unicorn stood for. Different kinds of courage, Mick had said. Now, after last night, Lenny thought he really knew what that meant. Perhaps, with his new unicorn courage, he would try to stick things out for a bit and see if they got better. Anyway, he didn't seem to care much what Joyce and the rest of them said or did anymore. They were only a load of mean, mangy old cats after all. Lenny came to where the garden met the back drive. As he turned the bend, he saw a figure coming towards the house from the opposite direction. A smallish person in a brown coat. A familiar walk. There was a good distance between them. Lenny quickened his pace. Then he broke into a run. Now, as he got closer, the outline of that person was blurred with tears. Lenny tore the last few yards. "Mum! Mum!" he shouted, and he threw himself into her arms. "Didn't you get my letter?" said Mum after a while. "I bombed out, a direct hit, the whole house is gone." "Lucky I was working at the canteen that night." "I never got no letter," sobbed Lenny. "The letterbox must have got it," said Mum. "I was running away," Lenny tried to tell her, but then his voice choked. It was too difficult to explain. There he is, seeing his mum for the first time for ages. "Lucky you didn't," said Mum, "or we might have missed each other. You're a brave boy, Lenny, a proper hero you are. After you left it seemed like even bombs were doing better than us being separated, but now I've come to take you back. We're going to your Auntie Rachel's in Wales. It's by the sea, Lenny, and guess what? Your dad's coming home on leave. We'd better go and tell them." Lenny felt in his pocket to check that the badge was safe. So he, Lenny Levi, was brave after all. He knew that didn't mean he would never be scared again, but at that moment he felt he could face anything. Jaunty now, and hand in hand with Mum, he walked back towards the house. And there's his badge again. I wonder how many times you'll see that out and about. And there's that beautiful garden with the unicorn. So Lenny took his courage from his dad's war badge, didn't he, with the lion and the unicorn on. And he was able to survive being apart from his mum for so long. See you soon.